Me gusta. And we are back. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. But we did get at
Yeah,
least that last phrase in there from Mr. Scott Davis. And thanks. Well, as many of these directors and filmmakers have heard, we'll just fix it in post. So we're gonna,
I hate hearing that. I'm an editor. Don't fucking ever say that again.
okay. Yes, sir.
Just like you
Thank you,
make
Mark.
we make you work a little harder.
From editors everywhere. Thank you.
And so, talking disturbing horror films, you all made great points because you get that question, especially for being horror fans. Why would you watch such a thing? And I think we all had really good points of what would make a good disturbing horror film. Now, speaking of what we watch, I asked everyone here, and we've got a lot of people here, so this should be definitely an interesting variety, to bring a disturbing movie or a movie they found disturbing to the table for us to talk about. I'm sure some of us have seen it, and also talk about why they chose that film. So we're going to start with Cole. Cole, what disturbing film did you bring us today?
man, it's a movie that just stays with me my whole life, and it's kind of a mainstream choice. But Cronenberg's remake of The Fly is disturbing to me on so many levels. The first level of which is it deals head on with what happens when somebody that you love very, very much falls apart before your eyes. It also deals with the effects of old age. What Brundlefly goes through can very much be viewed as just the symptoms of old age. It also deals with what happens when you go through your first sexual awakening, and perhaps you're not ready to deal with these emotions of love. Brundlefly would have not have gone down that path had he not thought that the love of his life was sleeping around on him, and hence got over the head over heels drunk one night and just transported him through this thing. And then it also, I just realized recently, pretty much deals with this weird aspect of childbirth and abortion and what happens when you think there might be something wrong with your baby. And then on top of all of those elements, it's also a very basic horror movie that deals with body horror in a very disturbing way. At one point, if you look closely, he's got his genitals in a jar.
Yep.
I mean, this movie is even more than some movies that disturb me up front, like Wolf Creek or Human Centipede 2 or something more obvious. The Fly kind of disturbs me for different reasons as I get older. And every time I watch it, I get a weird, different subtext of the storyline. On top of all that, of course, is just Goldblum's performance, which he just put himself into. It made you believe this could really happen. It's one of those movies that wouldn't work with CGI. It took Goldblum and all of that makeup to really pull off the sort of element of body horror.
Mm-hmm.
It really messes me up. Every time I watch it, I'm depressed for at least 2 days. I really enjoy it on a psychological level, but also just on a. I mean, Chris Walas obviously won the Oscar for the makeup effects, which was unheard of in the mid '80s. I mean, it's a fantastic and disturbing film. It's definitely on the top of my list, I think.
Anyone else want to weigh in on The Fly? I'm sure many of us have seen that one, the Cronenberg version. Definitely a different version from the original.
Yeah, yeah, man.
I think both films, both the original and the remake, though, have their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the remake that touched upon the themes that Cole was speaking of, and I think he put that very well.
Definitely is a disturbing one. Yeah, that scene where he opens up the medicine jar and you see all his parts that he's keeping. I mean, it's interesting because he's holding on to these parts that are obviously useless.
I think the most disturbing aspect of that scene isn't really, the grossy, goopy effects of, he's obviously has this body that's deteriorating before his eyes. It's the fact that he's kind of accepted that he's turning into something else. And
Absolutely.
He feels that what's her name? Gina Davis. He feels that Gina Davis in some weird way is going to accept this and then come back to him. That's what's really disturbing about that scene. It's not, his balls are in a jar and his dick is somewhere else, and pieces of him, he's puking on donuts and eating, slurping it up. That's not what it's those central themes of like things that actually affect you and I on a day-to-day thing is a dissolving relationship that there's nothing that can bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who doesn't want to keep pieces of themselves? I mean, if you're losing who you are, you want to hold on to that.
Sure. Yeah.
Whether it's in a jar or if it's not in a jar.
Good morning, balls. Still miss you.
Of course, there too, he could literally say that Gina Davis had his balls in a jar.
I have balls in a jar.
No.
Kate, Dawn, do you have balls in a jar?
Not yet, anyway.
Call me later.
Glenn, did you have anything to say about The Fly at all, or?
I haven't seen it in so long. It's. I mean, I remember parts of it, but yeah, I mean, I think it fits with a disturbing movie. But I mean, it's probably been, I don't know, 100 years since I saw it, or when that one come out.
80. What was it?
I think it was 86.
Yeah, almost 20 years since I've seen The Fly.
Yeah.
20th Century Fox that summer actually had two big hits of R-rated horror type films, and I remember towards the end of the summer they were even re-releasing them both as a double feature. Go see Aliens and The Fly.
I saw that.
That double feature was just been freaking hell. I got to see Aliens back then, but I had to wait for video for The Fly.
Kate or Dawn, any opinions on The Fly at all?
The Fly is definitely, like we were saying, disturbing movies should stick with you, and it definitely does stick. Obviously, it's very memorable, even though I haven't seen it recently, but it's still very memorable. I remember the specific parts you're talking about, and I can draw up the memory of other parts as well that are disturbing in it.
Yeah.
And would you ladies take him back? It's Jeff Goldblum, so,
Yeah, that sweetens the pot.
So easy. So easy.
He looked like a fly before he was a fly.
Yeah.
That's what always got me about that. It's that the very first scene you see him, they're like at this like science convention, and you see him. He's awkward and he's in the suit and he's just like looking around. I'm like, oh my god, he's changing already. Oh, no,
no, he's just a Poindexter.
he's just the Fly. So he's just Jeff Goldblum, and which you can really picture him in that cowboy outfit. But anyway.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, Buckaroo Banzai reference there. The Fly, an excellent choice, and it is a mainstream disturbing film because that got wide release and actually did well in the theaters too. So, well done. And Dawn, let's go right down the line. Dawn, your disturbing movie that you wanted to bring to the table.
There were two of them. One I was willing to revisit, and I did last night, and that was Dead Girl. The one I will not revisit is Requiem for a Dream.
Oh, okay.
That is not a movie that I ever intend to revisit because so many themes in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Requiem.
It was even beyond squirming. It was the whole concept of substance abuse and self-abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It touched so many things in me, and it was so wrong, from the young teenagers all the way up to the elderly mother.
Hey, anyone else here familiar with Requiem?
Yeah, man. I own Requiem for a Dream, and I've never watched it. I don't think it's even out of the plastic. I mean, I love it, but it messes me up. I mean, it messes me up deeply. And you know, I'm no stranger to the substance abuse genre, but there's something about that movie. Maybe it's the performances, or maybe it's the way it's edited, but it leaves you feeling very unclean, especially Jennifer Connelly's character.
Oh,
the way you see her slowly manipulated and willingly into this a land of prostitution is it's rough. It's a rough film.
Yeah, I agree. Though it does have a catchy soundtrack, so
Always a bonus.
always a bonus. Anyone else want to weigh in on the Requiem of a Dream? The one that I want to talk about. I'm sorry. Anyone else? I cut you off right away. Anyone else want to weigh in on Requiem at all?
I think what works about Requiem is that it's paced very, very, very well, and it escalates toward the end, and where it gets to the point where she's doing the double dildo action and all this other crazy ass shit, and it's like a gut punch, and I think that's a main factor of any good disturbing film is that it's not. That it knows the points in which to punch you and which points to pull back. And when you have a film that's as meticulously edited as most of Aronofsky's films, I mean, it's going to work for you. If it's just like, I hate to throw films under the bus, but I've never been a fan of the August Underground films. They're disgusting, and they're effective for what they are, but really, they don't disturb me because from the moment you start it to the moment it's done, it's just gratuitous violence.
Yeah.
You're in the same spot that you were at the beginning.
Yeah, so there's no real, there's no arc, there's no climax. It's just you get thrown into a pot, and then you just got to kind of sit there for a while, as the great Andrew Shearer would say.
Man, I've never had pot ever.
we are joined by Mr. Andrew Shearer, who asked to join in the discussion. And we were
Thank you.
Oh, you
Sorry
bet.
to interrupt.
Oh, not a problem. And we were talking about Requiem of a Dream. I think you summed that up very well, Derek. The other film that Dawn brought up that is one I want to talk about because it surprised me was Dead Girl. How many here have seen Dead Girl?
Me.
I've seen it.
No. Kate, have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
No?
Oh, yeah.
I've wanted to. I just haven't gotten around.
The film about two teenage boys exploring a abandoned hospital and happen to find a zombie woman, and them being young puberty boys decide to take advantage of said zombie woman.
Advantage.
I love how uncomfortable that was for you. It was so uncomfortable.
That's a polite way of saying that.
So they just sleep with a dead body?
They sleep with a zombie woman. They rape her. They basically use her as their personal sex slave. And we watch how that actually breaks, because these guys are really good friends at the beginning, and we watch how that deteriorates them. And this film, wow! When I first saw it, I did not expect what I saw in this film. But I mean, rape films are always tough, even if it's a zombie rape. But the way it's handled, she didn't quite. I mean, she had the zombie characteristics, but she was more feral than zombie in the beginning. She seemed like. What am I off on that, or did she seem more like just a feral zombie, and that's maybe why it disturbed me more, because she didn't seem like just a zombie, though rape is disturbing in general. But anyone else want to weigh in on Dead Girl? This film really bugged me too.
She wasn't
it should.
intended. Yeah, it should. But I don't think she was intended to look like a zombie. I think she was intended to look like a victim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree. I give total respect for the actress who played her. I mean, through that whole movie, for what she did was impressive. I thought. I mean, to go through that, especially for one of her, I think it was one of her first films. So. What about you, Ramona? What'd you think of Dead Girl?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember watching it the first time, and I wasn't expecting what I saw.
You were the same way. I didn't know much about it.
Yeah, I had heard fringe things about it, but I guess I just wasn't expecting everything that I witnessed. But honestly, I enjoyed the movie in some strange way, but then I'm kind of fucked up, so.
Well, it had an interesting. I mean, there's so many things it covers besides the obvious version, the story of rape, but it's also facing the. I don't know if I'm off on this. The subject of boys and sexual discovery.
That's 100% what it's about,
Yeah.
Mark.
It's a coming of age.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's 100% about wish fulfillment. Like, here's the scenario: every teenage, well, not every teenage boy. I hate to put a blanket out there. What if you had a female that you could do anything you wanted to, and nobody would care because it's essentially labeled an inanimate object. Yes, she's a corpse, but she's animated. So there's the weird thing about that performance is that her zombie character is the same throughout the whole film. There is no arc to that character. It is a zombie from point A to point Z. It is the story of those boys that change our perspective on that zombie character and how we feel about that character based on their actions. I think it's a gross film, but it's a highly nuanced film. There's a lot going on in that film subtextually.
Oh God, yes.
What about would you say, Cole, have you seen Dead Girl?
Man, I have not. I do have a problem with rape scenes in general. I mean, it's just, not that I won't watch it, but I'd rather not. Like,
right.
I'll never see Irreversible.
Oh,
so I
okay,
might not see Dead Girl, simply for
Right.
that reason. It's just a personal thing. But that being said, I do. If it's good enough, I'll sit through it. Like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Enough people told me you gotta see it that I saw it. So maybe Dead Girl is something I should watch. If it's done well, I'll watch it.
It's done disturbing. It really is. And like I said, her performance is what helps sell it because
It's a disgusting movie.
It
It's
is.
an absolutely disgusting movie.
Yes.
As someone, because I also have not yet seen the film, even though I've, like Trent Haga and stuff like that, who I think wrote it or something. Does it like speak to just like so I can ask the question here? Like, does it like speak to? Because when I see that kind of scenario, I think about that. I think about what a commentary that is on the misogyny that exists.
Oh, yes.
Starting from immaturity in adolescence, but also then if that misogyny is, if you get a positive reinforcement for misogyny, how it just gets worse and worse. Because I see that happening every day.
That's you nailed it on the head.
Yeah,
that is the central theme of Dead Girl. That really is the central theme of Dead Girl.
Yeah, definitely.
And I might be interested in it because that I think is actually just a disturbing trend in the world today. I mean, it's scary how misogyny gets a pass in so many different arenas.
Yeah, it is. Totally. Glenn or Andrew, any further thoughts on Dead Girl?
I want to hear Glenn's thoughts first.
Actually, I haven't seen Dead Girl. I was thinking of something else when you mentioned it. So yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. I actually just had it pop up in my feed the other day. I was going to check it out for the 31 Days of Horror, but I haven't watched it yet.
I'll check that out too.
Andrew, what about you, sir?
Oh, somebody brought it up in the 31, and I hadn't seen it since it came out. I'm a Troma fan, so I followed Trent Haga's writing career because after that he wrote that movie Chop, and then of course now it's Cheap Thrills, and it's weird because with Dead Girl, with that subject matter, you don't want to see like Troma type jokes in a story like that. You know what I mean? So, but Trent has, Troma does have a social conscience in with all its gross stuff. I mean, they are sometimes making a point, but they're mostly trying to gross you out.
Yeah.
Trent is trying to elevate that and go beyond. I mean, because he's written scripts that are very Troma-esque, but yet they're treated a little more seriously and a little bit more responsibly, let's say. But the scene I remember most from Dead Girl is when they've got her in the trunk of a car. I think this is years ago. I don't really remember, but I just remember something going on with the tire iron, and that was my favorite scene of the whole movie.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
Because I think things do not go well for these boys.
No,
they're not the heroes of the movie. They're the villains of the movie, which is a great spin. And I think in that scene they really got what was coming to them somehow.
Yeah, and
they got like physically fucked up somehow. I mean, I don't remember. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember loving that part of the movie.
They get their just desserts at the end, which when you make an extreme film like this, I think you really have to have that. You've got to have some kind of consequence, otherwise it really does become a film that you realize, oh, you just did this to be shocking. At least have some kind of resolution. Something bad happened to the really nasty bad people.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trent Hager, that's what he's doing. He's thinking of awful things for people to do to each other.
Sure.
But he's not letting them off the hook for doing that, and he's trying to at least show that he's got a brain in his head. So I don't know if you guys have seen Cheap Thrills or not.
I just reviewed it a while back. I enjoyed Cheap Thrills actually.
I would say Dead Girl is probably his strongest script that he's done. Well, that not including Toxic Avenger 4.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I actually liked him as an actor in a film called Suburban Nightmare.
Oh, I love Suburban Nightmare with David Rashan.
Yeah.
John Keyes or whatever.
Yep.
God, what happened to John Keyes?
John Keyes is great because he did American Nightmare, which is like one of my favorites that still too few people have seen.
Well, don't forget that wonderful motion picture he was in called Terror Firmer.
Yes, we can't forget
that one movie, man.
This is a whole other podcast we can do.
That's a whole other podcast.
Andrew, let's just hijack this and start talking about trauma movies. Go.
Oh, trauma.
It's
now,
been a long
children. No, Dead Girl really strikes on a number of levels. I thought, too, maybe just a little bit it was showing as a metaphor not only just for sexual awakening, but how about porn? It's the effects of porn and sex on a puberty boy as well. But
realistic expectations.
Yeah, exploitation. Having that readily available to you now, especially in the age
unrealistic
of the internet.
Expectations, not exploitation.
Exploitation. I'm sorry, your mic cut out there. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about teenage girls having unrealistic expectations of men due to books like, due to Twilight, and a lot of that other girl that's out there. But the effects of porn, whether it's internet porn or whatever, on teenage boys is not necessarily as often commented on.
No.
Yeah, nobody's I don't think people are, because our bodies are changing when our brains are still very immature. I don't think women or men really have the mental faculties to have realistic expectations during our teenage years. I mean, I know I didn't. I mean, boys,
I think
reaching their sexual peak, you're just like, boob, 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 boob.
I'm still like that. I'm 37 years old.
You're older, and I'm still like, hey, boob, boob, boob. But also context.
Yeah, well, Dead Girl and Cheap Thrills are kind of both asking the same question. They're putting a scenario going like, would you do this if you could or had to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of where he's operating on, and that's what makes him disturbing. Because the plausibility of it is just pretty strong.
That's what disturbed me with Dead Girl, was just how realistic of a portrayal, because you looked at it going, I could see this actually happening. This wasn't something that was out of the realm of
it's not too far off from real crimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also think this brings up another thing about what makes a good disturbing film is the balls to be able to go there, to not shortchange going to that point that pushes that barrier way past.
Mm-hmm.
So subtlety at some points really works, but I think in terms of something like Dead Girl, if they hadn't gone as far as they did, I don't think it would have had the gut punch that it has.
No, it would have been lost, I think, among other similar films of it. Just another toss off. Extreme horror to be extreme. So
weird double feature. Even though I haven't seen either one of them, would be to have Dead Girl and maybe either preceded by something that actually is porn, which is Repenetrator. Joanna Angel did like a gross out parody of Reanimator.
Oh,
geez.
Wait, what about
It's more
Dawn
like
of the Dead?
extended short.
No, I'm just talking because it has a similar theme about actually reanimating the girl,
Yeah.
and hers would, I'm assuming, is comedic, and is gross out porn, and the other one is actually like, no, here, serious
meditation on this topic, not fantasy.
So true
I don't know,
story.
I'm serious.
So not to derail this, but true story. At Cinema Wasteland, she was actually a guest this last like 2 weeks ago. And,
Oh, yeah?
Yes, and I actually sang karaoke with her in the room, so it was very
Oh,
strange.
nice. I mean, I haven't seen all her movies, but I like her. I think she's funny. I think she's
Triple
smart.
Exorcist is probably the best one. Repenetrator is not. I mean, that's
I didn't see Repenetrator. I didn't see Triple Exorcist.
That could be another podcast, boys.
Even though it's like one scene, it still was kind of funny, you know?
That could be
the
another
vomit
podcast.
spews exactly from where you think it spews from.
Yeah.
Oh God, good choices, Don. We're gonna hop right back here. Good choices on that. Dead Girl, definitely a more recent disturbing film that actually had a point rather than just trying to be disturbing and shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Derek, we're just gonna go right down the line here. Mr. Carey, why don't you bring us what one disturbing film did you want to bring to the table here?
There was a couple that I kind of tossed back and forth. I mean, if we were just going for disturbing on a gross out level,
well, either one. I mean, you know.
Well, no. I'm just trying to get to a point.
Sure.
Sorry, Mark.
No.
But
No process here.
Yeah, right. I've take two. In the early 2000s, Unearthed Films re-released the Guinea Pig films, and that was at a point where I was watching a lot of gore, a lot of really seedy underground gore. And I remember seeing The Devil's Experiment, which is the first Guinea Pig film, and kind of being like, this is just people being tortured. And then The Flower of Flesh and Blood was a film that was oddly... It essentially is a movie where a dude chops up a girl, and we watch very... the camera doesn't waver, and he literally just chops her up bit by bit while she's bound to a table or to a mattress and drugged up, and she's essentially just destroyed in front of your eyes for 40 minutes.
Jesus.
But it's done in this oddly hypnotic and poetic way, and it's repulsive and psychologically disturbing, and it's one of these films where if you torture porn is Flower of Flesh and Blood. It's not Hostel. It's not what's the other one now? Saw. It's not stuff like that. It's Flower of Flesh and Blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's August Underground. It's stuff like this. And what doesn't work, and I brought up August Underground before, what doesn't work about August Underground is because it's essentially set up like a porno film, where it's just like, money shots after money shots after money shots, where The Flower of Flesh and Blood has a mythology to it, or a methodology to it, where it's just like it progresses from one bit to the next bit to the next bit until by the end of it, it's just, you can't believe you've watched this, and it just to me, it scarred me, and I've only ever watched it twice, and both times I'm thoroughly disgusted and depressed because it's so freaking.
One of those. Yeah.
Well, it's because it's a samurai. The guy who's the killer is a samurai, and he spouts poetic about how dissecting this body is like awakening a flower that's blooming, and how much she's in ecstasy. It's just disgusting. So anyways, on one level, if you're looking for a gross out film, Flower of Flesh and Blood is a really thoroughly disgusting and depraved and disturbing film. But if you're looking for a more traditional film, and it's funny that I'm going to say this is a traditional film, but I found Jim Van Bebber's The Manson Family a thoroughly like disturbing, like very depressing film.
I've heard about this film, but I've not actually seen it. I've heard words about it.
It gets slammed a lot because it's not 100% a historically accurate representation of what went down. But I think Van Bever wasn't looking to create a document on what happened. He was looking to give you a feeling of the mania of how people could get swindled in and mind controlled into doing very heinous things. If they were marginalized in society and nobody believed in them, and they finally found family and the power of community and family, and how drugs can lead people into doing very repulsive, disgusting things. And the film, it's very experimental. Editorially, it's all over the place. But it starts at one point, and then by the time it gets to the points that we all know about, the Tate murders and in the subsequent day where they murdered more people, it is so in your face, and so it doesn't shy away from anything, and it was like, it felt like somebody had just taken a sledgehammer to my chest. It thoroughly was a film that was disgusting, but I was blown away by it. I honestly think, and I've only just recently seen it, because I picked up this Severin Blu-ray, and I think it's a work of art. I honestly think that there's very few films that I've ever watched that have hit me the way this film hit me.
Sure.
So, just like if you're into, serial killer, historical type films, there's elements of that in there. But if you're looking for something that just shows pure mania, the Manson family, man, it just thoroughly disgusted me and also disturbed me on a very profound level for many days after I had watched it.
Anyone else has seen this film?
It's an amazing film. I just posted a link I wrote like about 10 years to a review I wrote about 10 years ago on the site. Now, there was a time when this movie, it looked like it was never going to see the light of day. He spent like something crazy like 10, almost 20 years making this movie. He would keep on running out of money, and then he'd shoot for more, and then he'd run out of money, shoot for more. He was like selling his blood to pay film lab costs and stuff.
Because it was shot on 16 millimeter, right?
Yeah, well, among other things.
Among other things.
Yeah.
I think there was some 16, some Super 8, some lots of.
It's shot on video. There's a lot of different formats. It basically is the precursor to. It feels like Natural Born Killers a lot. Some of it does, yeah.
Yeah, he shoots on like a lot of he experiments with a lot of different formats. So I actually was thinking that this would never see the light of day. Back in the 90s, when the gray market was happening and people were selling bootleg VHSs, I actually got a bootleg of the unfinished movie back when it was called Charlie's Family. And I immediately called it the most brilliant unfinished film I'd ever seen. And then the wonderful news that I think it was Dark Sky or somebody that agreed to pay. It was either Anchor Bay or Dark Sky that agreed to pay to get the rest of it made, and it got finished and it was even better. It's fantastic. It shows this weird cult of personality that built up around Charlie Manson, because it's not really about Manson, it's about the people who followed
him. Who got affected by it.
And it goes back and forth to them in prison and them flashing back to them, and also juxtaposes it with like this weird kind of new cult that kind of goes and looks at like Charlie Manson as a hero and watches transgressive films like You Killed Me First stuff. And it just does all these weird things, and it's very explicit, very sexually explicit, very violent, but it is so much smarter. It is so much more amazingly beautiful and haunting than any of these procedurals or anything that has come before it. It's not a big Charlie Manson worship piece.
No.
It's saying, how does this happen? And it takes you down this really dark rabbit hole of the American Dream. It is really one of my favorite movies. That is such a great pick, Derek. Oh man,
It
I
is
love
one of
that
those
movie.
films, seriously, that doesn't glorify what these people did.
Sure.
When it gets to the point that we all know it's getting to, it doesn't flinch, and by not flinching, it makes you look at these people and what they did, and it makes you have to take a side on what these actions were. It is so repulsive, and it is edited so well, and it's made so well that I was really affected by it.
Yeah.
It's really a work of genius. It's amazing. It is amazing. No one's prepared for it.
A little
Anyone
bit of trivia about the squib hit effects in Manson Family. Those were done by Andy Kopp, who I mentioned on the last one.
Sure.
And here's how he did them. He took an egg, carefully put a hole in the egg, and drained everything out of the egg. Left the shell, filled the shell with fake blood, and threw it at the actors.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to weigh in on the Manson Family? Have they seen it? If not, I think we've all just put it on our list.
It should be on your list.
So, excellent there. And Kate, why don't we go with you next on your extreme? I'm interested to see what your extreme horror film was.
So I had two.
Okay.
One I just watched today, and it was Martyrs, and that was kind of it was really good. I really enjoyed it, but it was disturbing for a couple different reasons. The first being it deals with a lot of child abuse, and the second is that you don't really have a clear reason for why anything is happening until the very end, and so you never really know where it's going or why it's even happening, and pretty much everything in it just looks extraordinarily painful. Like you can feel the pain while you're watching it, and I wasn't expecting that really. And the other one is one of my favorites actually, which is Last House on the Left, the original one. And I always kind of go back to this one because, as a rape revenge film, that's obviously disturbing enough. But then it's paired with the comedy and the upbeat music, so you're switching back and forth, and you sort of get this kind of guilt for watching it. At least I do, because you're really upset, and then you're laughing because something really funny happens. So those are my two picks.
Wow, those are excellent picks. Let's go with Martyrs first. I'll say I had heard a lot about Martyrs, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And yeah, that film definitely surprised me as well. I didn't expect it to be what it was about. And you're right, that is a film that doesn't tell you right away what's going on and why. And I think confusion really helps add to the disturbing part of it, especially if you get the performance like you did out of the actresses. Anyone else, have they seen Martyrs, and what do you think of it?
I love Martyrs, man. It was part of this. I put them together. High Tension, Inside, Frontiers, and Martyrs. They were all kind of routed around the same time, and all kind of came to the forefront at the same time, and they all were just like, man, you just felt horribly when you watch them. They're so, you're like, just let it be over, man. Come on, let me over, man. I just, because there was a lot of extreme stuff going on with Japanese film too at the time, because Audition was, not too long before that. But so we were seeing some rather explicit violence, but the way they presented it, shit just seemed like it hurt. Like Kate said, extremely painful, and the effects were all great. They're all very well made films. You got to remember, like a lot of times we've seen gore and stuff, not always well executed, and sometimes humor.
Yeah.
This stuff is not. There's nothing funny about it, and they look good, and the acting is like. It was just like, damn, those 4 movies, man. You watch them all in a row, you just want to jump off a bridge or something. Just give me Disney Channel. I need that So Raven right now. I need it in my veins.
Glenn, Don, or Cole, have you guys seen Martyrs?
Yeah, Martyrs is a masterpiece. It was actually runner-up for me for tonight, but I went with The Fly just because it's a bit gross. It makes me feel a bit grosser. But Martyrs is one of those movies. My friend Bruce called me up at about 10 or 11 at night on a work night. I was like, dude, I cannot come over and hang out. He's like, just drop what you're doing. Come over here. I'm going to go to bed, but you got to watch this movie. And I went over to his house by myself with a six-pack and watched Martyrs. And consequently, it was so impressive, I went to that director, the next movie I could find of his, which is The Tall Man. Don't let Jessica Biel on the cover turn you off. I'm serious. It's a good film, and with as many twists, if not more than Martyrs, with less gore but the same themes of child abuse. And I just want to throw a shout out to Tall Man. If you liked Martyrs, that's worth checking out. But Martyrs is a masterpiece. It really is.
Anyone,
both of them, yeah.
Anyone else want to weigh in on Martyrs?
I think Martyrs gets unjustly maligned by some people because the ending kind of goes over their head. But I also agree with everyone across the board. It is an absolutely amazing film.
Well, I think too, when it came out, we had the trend of the other more mainstream quote-unquote torture porn films, and I think some people may have looked at it and go, oh, that's just another torture porn film, but it's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. There's so much more going on with Martyrs, and those, if they actually, people sit down and watch it, they'll realize, oh, this isn't a Saw, or this isn't a Hostel. This is something completely different, a whole nother level of disturbing going on with it. So definitely, Glenn, did you have anything on Martyrs at all? Or?
No, I have not. I have not seen Martyrs.
Oh, okay. Well, mark that one on your list too. No.
Yep.
No, you shouldn't.
And then I've totally got to go with Kate on this. The original Last House on the Left. That film is one of those that kind of collection of horror films that came out at that time that are just people really doing something out there. It bugged the hell out of me when I watched it. Again, great films I have problems with anyway, but especially this one, because it's doing it the low-budget 70s way, you don't really have much of a soundtrack. I mean, outside of their audio, their screams and that, where nowadays every minute is filled with some kind of music usually. Mm-hmm. And there you don't, especially when the...
Worldwide interweb.
What? Oh. See, right now we have music all over the place. No, but I'll say, when the bad things are happening, it's just pretty much. I tell you. No, that's fine. My point's up now. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone. I'm done now. No, it's just, I think the low budget kind of grittiness of it helps add to it, plus the fact you don't have music when the bad things are happening. You just have the natural sound of them having bad things happen to them. It's definitely in that range. Does anyone else agree that Last House on the Left, one of those disturbing films that I think, though, you should still see, personally?
Well, I think what's the most disturbing about Last House is that there's comic relief in it. There's goofy humor that was meant to kind of offset the bad stuff, but really it just makes it worse.
It does.
It's funny hearing about Wes Craven talks about how that's the one part of the movie he wishes he'd left out, because I think that's what makes it so profoundly disturbing, or one of the many reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway, those comedic scenes.
You mean like when they're sleeping in the bed together and just...
Well, it's like what we were talking about with the dead girl and Trauma, It's just like, okay, but they treat dead girls very serious, and it should be. Don't joke around when you're in the Satan's territory. And the fact that Last House is just like, yeah, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're boring, sometimes they're just murdering people, and hey.
The one bit that didn't work for me was when it would go back to, and these were probably meant to be the relief, or the inept cops.
Well, I think that's
but they would do like these little scenes with the gang before they get really violent, like the guy doing the frog noises and stuff like that, or
Kate, what is the
David
chicken
Hess
lady
not being
saying?
able to get it up in the car and stuff like that.
The truck and the chicken.
What is her line? The truck and the chicken. Them things don't go together.
That's what you were saying, Cole, right, about the comedy part?
No, actually, I was referring to the cops. I think mainly. Well, let me rephrase. I think that's what Craven was referring to. I read this interview a few years ago. You know, he's proud of the film. He thinks that it came from a young man who had way more anger than he probably realized. But he said he wishes he cut out the cop scenes, and the cop scenes, I think, tie the thing together in some weird way. I really enjoy those little interludes. I don't think anything else I really found comedic, actually. I don't remember much about the first half hour, but obviously I have a personal aversion to rape scenes. Not a moral aversion, a personal aversion. Right. But I'm a Wes Craven buff, so I've seen it a few times, and it fucks me up, man. It's a hard film, you know.
It's really interesting also because I was reminded of this because you were mentioning about, you know, what Craven has said about the film over the years. And, you know, I imagine that you watched, like, the special edition DVD and stuff and all the cool supplements that were on it, like I did.
Yeah, sure, Scott. We actually, that's what we did, all right.
I'm sure it's for science. It's okay.
No. But like, no, I loved seeing the extras, and what still gets me is hearing about how one of the actors, who's now passed away, Fred J. Lincoln, he always considered that's one of the films that I wish I'd never made. It's too much. It's too much. I'm thinking he did some adult films that had absolutely zero redeeming social value, in which he played similar parts to that, but it wasn't meant as but it was meant to be titillating and everything like that. So I'm like, I never could get my head around that. And
dude, when he stabs that girl in the back, helps her at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I never got my head around why that movie did he not
appreciate. But the other ones were okay, right?
Yeah, it's weird. And, you know, he also, you know, and I'm not saying anything this as a negative thing about him, but he also tried to do, because he became a director of adult films, you know, after he, you know, wasn't, you know, exactly as sly as he used to be in front of the camera. And he did one that was supposed to be kind of like a takeoff on it, you know, but never, you know, he did some things like in the 70s that I won't watch.
Really?
That's saying something. I'm telling you.
Wow, that's impressive, Scott.
You know, because oh no, that's just because they're like the ruffies, and I just that takes it out.
I think you could stop there with what he did. No, just kidding. We don't need to know what else he did. I'm joking with you, Scott. You know that. Glenn or Don, Last House on the Left. Any thoughts on it?
Nothing I can add. No.
No.
Nope. I think they were pretty thorough.
Yeah. I think we all were pretty thorough on it. So definitely some great choices there, Kate. Disturbing films, to be sure. And Glenn, what about you, sir? Disturbing film. I'm interested to see what your pick was.
I brought two. I brought one that I think was disturbing, but it was not a good movie because it didn't do. It tried to, I think, disturb you just to slowly disturb you, and that was Strange Circus.
Oh, okay.
She on Sono, which was unfortunate because I like his other movies. I like Cold Fish. I like Suicide Club.
Why do I hear that song Mark did in my head again?
So that one is just, you know, the repetition of the incest and all that stuff. It just was. It was, I think, trying to be offensive solely for just trying to offend solely to offend.
Right.
Sure. The other one I brought, the one that I liked that I felt was offensive, or pushed the boundaries a bit, was one we just saw recently, and that's Dis.
Oh. Yeah.
It's an independent one that just came out, and that one disturbed me a bit.
That's a rough one for sure.
That's rough.
It's a rough one because you have some horror films that are that deal with like supernatural and stuff like that, and all that stuff. But there's nothing in this, at least what you see on the screen for most of it, that couldn't actually happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and some of the stuff is stuff that actually has happened. I mean, I don't want to ruin the movie, so I'm not going to say the scenes, but there's a particular scene that's really, really hard to watch. And
you mean the one that had me rocking back and forth saying, "Oh my fucking God"?
Yes, it's that scene.
The jar, yes.
Oh, not the jar.
No, not the jar.
This is.
Oh, that one, yes.
How the thing in the jar came to be there.
Yes, okay.
That scene it was disturbing to watch, for one, because of what it is, but also because of the fact that you know that there are people who have done that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So that right there really, really, you know, hits and stuck with me, because it was that it's horrific, but that's something real, man.
So this is a tease, but so like, just so everybody's clear, is it called DIS?
It's called DIS. DYS with a dash.
DYS. Okay.
I'm not sure many people have seen here. Ramona or Kate, did you see it at all? A festival or not? It's been on the festival circuit recently.
Yeah, Kate has been really wanting to see it.
Okay, it's interesting seeing Kate's. It's interesting seeing Kate's facial expressions about trying to figure, like, what?
I want to see it so bad.
Yeah, I don't, and that's the thing. I don't want to spoil the scene for it, because it really, I think if you know what's coming, it lessens the punch in some films.
It's a spoiler room, but we don't want to spoil this one, because it really, the point he's talking about really is the turning point in the film of where it makes your jaw drop. Plus, it's actually one of the, I think that film has one of the best performances by the actress Shannon Lark. I think it's one of her best performances, actually, out of the films I've seen her do. One of the more serious ones, to be sure. So, yeah, if anyone can catch it, I'm sure it'll get distribution the way it's done. And it's shot really well. It's got a really high quality to it, but it was definitely disturbing. And if it doesn't make your jaw drop, then there's something wrong with you out there, because... Dawn, besides rocking back and forth, did you have anything to add about this?
Nothing that would not potentially spoil it. Yeah. I mean, I have definite things to say about it, and I think I've mentioned them to you privately.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that I feel comfortable saying because of it would spoil it.
Right. And yeah, because it was a surprise film for me as well when I got to see it. I wasn't expecting it to be like that, and in a good way, in a really good way.
Yeah, I think it also goes to that other quintessential aspect of being a good disturbing movie is that it makes you want to talk about it afterward.
Yeah.
Immediately, I was part of a film festival that recently showed it, and you guys may have been there, but.
Maybe.
and it was my pick for the festival, and when I first watched it, I was very boggled by it, and I immediately got a hold of Mr. Andrew Shearer, and I had to talk to someone about it, and I knew he had seen it, so it was just like it made me want to talk about it, and regardless if I was confused or if maybe I'd missed something or it wasn't all connecting to me. When a film makes me want to actively be a participant in it, it means it's succeeded.
Wow.
That there's something about it that has won me over, and DIS certainly did. And it starts off feeling like it's just a normal infection type movie, like a zombie type film, in which it totally isn't.
No.
And it uses that framework as a good metaphor for everything else that happens in that film. So another thing about good disturbing movies, they make you want to talk about them with somebody else.
Yeah, right after the film ended at the Oshkosh Horror Film Festival, we all started talking immediately about it. I mean, it was like instant, like, okay, this is what we need to talk about, because this film, we have to talk about it as a support group so we could get through what we just saw.
Everybody who's going to be listening to this is now going to be marking this down like, holy crap!
Yeah, it's on my list, definitely.
And it's one of those things too where it goes to show that, you know, you don't need some giant budget and big name stars to make a good movie that will make you talk about it.
Exactly.
I mean, this is a great independent film.
Yeah, agreed, definitely. Great picks there, Glenn. I was interested to see what you came up with. A nice recent reference, to be sure. And Mr. Andrew Shearer, what about you, sir? Your disturbing film that you'd like to talk about?
The movie that I have a long list, and there's things that freak me out for different reasons. The only movie I've ever walked out of is Saving Private Ryan because I couldn't handle the realistic violence at the beginning. Actually, like war stuff always really bothers me.
Oh yeah.
Documentaries often disturb me. The one Jesus Camp is probably the one that freaked me out the most.
Oh
about the
God,
little
yeah,
kids that
People asked me what the scariest movie of that year was. I said
Jesus Camp.
Yeah, Jesus Camp. But since we're going on like fiction stuff, I settled on a Spanish movie from the '80s called In a Glass Cage.
Okay.
It is about a Nazi who tortures little boys and stuff and molests them and kills them and all these things. And when he is discovered, he carries that on throughout his life after the war. And when he's discovered, he tries to kill himself. Doesn't do it, not successful. Ends up spending his life in an iron lung. And a young kid, a teenage boy, comes to act as his nurse. And it turns out that this boy is one of the victims that survived him. And the guy's confined to an iron lung now, can't do anything. So the kid basically is like getting revenge, but he's kind of become the guy.
Right.
In a lot of ways. And so he starts torturing boys in front of him and doing all the things that he saw him do. But the thing, all that's awful. All those things, really bother me. But the worst thing of all in this movie is the sound of the freaking iron lung, the breathing. Dude, I can't. It's a good thing it's a subtitled movie because I had to turn the sound off. Like that,
wow.
I totally couldn't handle. And the ending, the ending is just a crush your life kind of ending. But yeah, In a Glass Cage, Agustin Villaranga is the director. I think the DVD came out probably in the early 2000s. Netflix probably has the disc for rental. But yeah, man, that movie, I never run into anybody that's seen it, and I cannot recommend it to you at all. But it's in the same conversation as Pasolini's Salo because of that reason, and maybe Caligula as well. Just like those top that are on everybody's list, not new lists that have Human Centipede on them, but like actual disturbing movie lists, like with that have Cannibal Holocaust on them or things like that. Because it's just, man, it has just got this layer of awful. And I read about it in a Chaz Balin article in Gore Zone where he was talking about like combat shock and movies like that, and just like some of the more messed up stuff he's seen. And I was a kid going like, "Hey man, I need to see the most extreme horror movies because I gotta metal, right? Metal." But by the
and you weren't ready.
Well, when you watch them when you're a kid and you watch them kind of through a different lens, but because everybody rented Faces of Death was like, oh, dude, the monkey head, yeah, the electric right? But like you grow up and it bothers you like in a whole different way, and like I watched that movie. I worked at night for like 10 years, so I'd rent movies, go to work, get home, start looking at them, and I was like, shit, why did I do this to myself? That whole list that I gave, basically, I all watched them by myself at night. And like y'all were talking about, as soon as you break from a disturbing movie, you like people talk about it with each other. There wasn't nobody to talk to either. This is way before Yahoo Chat and shit. So I was left with my own thoughts, and just looking at the pillow like, why?
Yeah.
It seemed like a good idea. It's like getting Taco Bell drive-through at 3 in the morning. This shit is a bad idea, but once you finish, you go like, no, milk was a bad choice. But yeah, In a Glass Cage, that's a very long-winded way of saying that's the top for me. I'm very bad with body things. Like, I will not watch the 127 hours or whatever it was because of the hand thing getting cut off. I can watch Bruce Campbell do it all day and not get an Oscar nomination. But, like, knowing it really happened is usually a big thing for me. But like, In a Glass Cage is based on real stuff, like Men Behind the Sun. A good example of another war atrocity kind of movie that really bothered people, and so that was mine. Sorry, it was not too funny or interesting, but yeah,
no,
you want to hurt yourself watching A Glass Cage.
That's why I wanted to do this. I knew all of us here would have a different variety of films to bring. Anyone else, have they seen this film at all? No,
I have not. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Spanish,
a very gross movie.
Is it, Derek?
Andrew is not underselling
Pupil, I guess, would be a comparable type story, the Stephen King story. But I think it was rooted in like somebody that was fought with Joan of Arc. They found out had killed like 800 little boys or something like that. So I think the director heard that story.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah.
I did a thesis on him in high school. God, such a well-educated young lad. But no, that guy actually existed. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm not French. One of Joan of Arc's closest companions was a black magician. Go figure.
Basically, the dude that Checky Cario played in the Messenger movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, was like a horrible, horrible child murderer.
Wow, no one's seen this movie, but everybody knows this guy.
Yeah.
Not how I saw this going.
We read weird things.
we definitely have a warehouse of interesting knowledge between all these fine.
When you sit up on Wikipedia late at night and you're just waiting to see how far you could go before you're like, no more. List of unusual deaths, or read that synopsis of Serbian film one more time.
God. And Ramona, what about you? What disturbing films have you brought for us to talk about?
Well, I debated, a lot about this and like what we talked about earlier, what constitutes disturbing and how it's got to really stay with you and make an impact. So I kind of brought one that is going to step out of the horror box a little bit and break the rules. But for me, it's hands down, it's Blackfish. Which is the documentary on SeaWorld and keeping, captive, whales and how they become aggressive and attack people. And, I remember going to SeaWorld, and it was one of the reasons why I loved animals so much. And then I saw this movie, and it just, it raped my memory, and it changed my entire perception. It made me realize, it's not fair. They're not there for our entertainment. They're not there for... for us to watch them. It's not as educational as you would think it is, as they try to make you feel like, they're, they're helping, people become aware of them. No, it's completely cruel. It's wrong. And even to watch, I don't know if anybody have seen it, to watch some of the, fishermen who initially caught some of the whales talk about breaking up the families of the whales. And to see these, hardened, Quint-esque characters break down and cry about what they did when they were younger and how if they could change anything in their life, this is what they would change. It just it really resonated with me, and it really did fuck me up. I was in tears a couple times in the movie theater, and I don't think it's just because I'm a huge animal person, but it just related to me on so many levels.
No, that's a good pick. That one has disturbed a lot of people. Actually, it doesn't have to necessarily be a horror film to be a horrific film.
It's still a horror film to me.
Yeah, and it's a horror film to you.
I have not been able to watch that one.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people have said to me, because it was the same thing too, where as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I need to tell everybody about this movie, and then nobody wanted to see it when I told them about it. This is not working.
I'm like you. I all the kids, they say when you get to go see Disney World and all these other parks when you're a kid with the family vacations. I loved SeaWorld the most, and I just remember my reaction seeing a different movie. I think it might have been from the same people, but I'm not sure. Called The Cove.
Oh yeah, that's.
And I saw that in the theater, and there's the scene where because they spend the whole time trying to prove what they're showing that dolphins are being slaughtered. And they spend the whole movie trying to get cameras in and microphones and everything, and then there's this moment where you see the footage and you just see the water turn red.
Just red, yeah.
I was in the theater and I was just in my seat, just my head in my hands, just sobbing, because it was so horrifying to see. You know, it's like you say, you know, everything you were brought up to believe in your childhood, that the animals are here for you and everything. They're not here for you. No one's here for you.
Well, I think just the fact that they their lifestyle and structure is very similar to ours. They have families, they stay together, they care, and like the thought of somebody just coming into my house and like ripping my family apart so that they could put somebody on display, you know.
Oh God.
I mean, like I feel like I can relate to that. Like to not, they describe in the movie how when they were being, like, a certain pod was being chased, how the males in the pod would try to distract the people catching the babies and the mothers in hopes to get them to go after them as opposed to going after the babies and the mothers, which, I mean, that's just, like, that's what we would do. So it really it hit me really hard, like, just to see that, and then to have people, like, not realize, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Anyone else here seen Blackfish?
Yeah.
I got it.
I'll definitely watch it. I'd never even heard of it, actually.
No.
But...
Yeah, it was a big talk last
Change
year.
your life.
I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's in 2013, I think, is when it came out, yeah.
It
It
seemed
is.
to me like
Nice.
Andrew, yeah, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, man, there's a lot of movies because of my job that come to me just as a disc, you know, and I don't know anything about it. The movies aren't out yet a lot of times. And Blackfish was one of those. It was before all the award stuff was going on, and I didn't, you know, it was just another thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another movie that I get in the mail at work, and you know, I'm like, I wouldn't have watched this, right? Like if I'd known, right? I don't do good with real life stuff, and yeah, I may have watched it for. I kind of had to have watched. I guess had to watch it, but like that was just like, I mean, everything she said, and those freaking SeaWorld people knew that this animal had killed someone before.
Tilikum? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a killer, and they knew it. And
yeah, how would you feel? Yeah, then they still harvested his sperm so that they could make other whales with the same, like, it's going to have the same genetic. It's going to be that.
It is so dirty. I mean, it's so inhumane and dirty, man. It's just like...
I'd be probably really pissed off if I lived in a bathtub for 31 years.
Yeah. I know, I don't blame it at all.
We didn't get down here. I mean, was this the SeaWorld in Florida that this happened? I thought it was.
Yeah.
See, I live in Florida, and we got, like, the news stories of, well, unexpected tragedy at SeaWorld. You know, what happened? Was it not well trained enough? Was basically what the angle of the news stories were. You know, maybe they didn't train it enough. Not, you know, you've kept this thing and kept it. You created this, you know, not anything like that.
Well, they show him going after, you know, one of the other trainers, too, where they're trying to put up the little net barrier for him, and, I mean, and the whale is just clearly coming at him. This is like Orca, but for real.
Yeah, I wouldn't have watched. I don't, like, I was watching it going, because I got that in, like, some Paul Rudd screener at the same day. It was just like, save me, Paul Rudd.
Kate, were you trying to say something about Blackfish?
That was that was really difficult to watch. It was heartbreaking. And also how they blamed the trainer for her own death, how they said that her ponytail was like taunting the whale. Like,
that made
it was just so deceitful, everything in it. And it was heartbreaking. Yeah. I'll never go to SeaWorld again, and I'll never have any good memories of it again.
Yeah, that's why I said it kind of like it took that level of innocence I had away.
Yeah.
You all have good memories.
By that documentary a lot, and they continue to be hurt, which is good.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. They were just disappear altogether, but they've at least been hit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Glenn, Derek, or Don, any thoughts on Blackfish?
You can't undersell the impact that the film has, because it's done in a very frank, matter-of-fact way, and it just tells the story how it is, and it also kind of gives some, you know, perspective to those of us that aren't privy to that world and the behind-the-scenes world of training that kind of animals and being around those kind of animals. I would, like everyone else said, I would never go there again.
Sure.
I would. It's disgusting that things like this happen, but I'm sure they happen on a far grander scale than we're aware of.
They do.
It's a shame too, because I really like the manta ray feed the manta ray pit, but now, yeah, I feel bad about that.
We have you know that movie, the crappy movies, but Dolphin Tale.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's local for me. That's Clearwater Marine Aquarium. That's exactly where I live, is Clearwater.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been there, and to their credit, because I had to go there, I had to like supervise a class that I was teaching. I had to go there with them, and to their credit, all the animals that we saw could not be released back in. They had been hurt by something, like a jet ski, some douchebag with their jet skis, or something or other. And so, to their credit, at least when those were nursed and kept in captivity, it's because they are not going to survive. Like, for instance, they had like this one turtle who could not submerge.
Right.
You know, it's just like always on the surface and stuff. Like, okay,
that's
as long
that's
as you don't abuse the animals, as long as you're really caring for them, I get that. But SeaWorld is just making money. They're not there for the education. They're nothing.
Well, and all the whales were stolen from the wild.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And or born into it, which is just as bad.
Born into captivity. It's kind of like I mean, not to like make a direct correlation, but it reminds me of the title of that prostitution documentary from a few years ago, Born into Brothels. Well, I'm not saying the fish are prostitutes. I'm saying, you know,
wow.
I'm saying that, you know, when you're born into a hell,
slutty fish.
You're born. You're talking about born into captivity.
But I'm saying that when you're born into a hell, that's all you know, and that warps you as well. And so I was actually trying to make a serious point for one.
It's okay, Scott. We know what you're going for, but.
Scott, what'd you do? What'd I miss?
Scott was just talking about how whales are prostitutes.
Slutty fish, though. Slutty fish.
Get it? Sperm whale?
Oh, wow.
See, now it just got disturbing.
Got disturbing. No, excellent.
I should stop talking once my drink is half gone.
Just take another sip.
What are you drinking? Grain alcohol?
But Ramona, that's an excellent choice, and it shows that, you know, it doesn't have to be in the horror genre to be a disturbing film and have an impact. And yeah, Blackfish definitely is one that resonates with a lot of people still. And as Scott said, SeaWorld is still getting hurt, and that's a good thing. So
yeah, like nonfiction has got to be in the world of film always the most disturbing. I mean, one could say the most disturbing film they ever saw was the Zapruder film or the Bud Dwyer footage, or anything like stuff like that. It's, you know, the cinema is one thing, but real life always worse.
Yeah, definitely. So, and Scott, I believe you are the last one to weigh in. What is your disturbing film that you'd like to talk about?
Well, Andrew probably unintentionally gave me a really good segue there, actually, because this film, it is a fictitious film, but it was researched from the files of several killers and molesters and everything in the past. It's a small film. I'm not sure if everybody here has seen it or have heard of it. It's called Scrapbook.
Oh, yes. Eric Stanze.
Eric Stanze.
Scrapbook.
That's a classic, man.
2000. It's a
classic.
Devastating movie.
Yes.
We start out, just to paint you a picture, we get a little bit of a flashback, first of all, about how, because we have basically a two-character movie for the most part. And we get a little flashback about how this killer was made. He was born into this horrible family of abuse. His sister starts molesting him, and then his father catches him, and then finds him and starts beating him and raping him, and that's the first scene.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's done with with a POV camera, so that they don't endanger any kids, but also it also kind of almost puts you in those shoes. And the main focus of the film is this woman, Clara, is abducted and put into a van and stuff and brought out to this farm by this killer, this serial killer named Leonard. Now, Leonard has been able to get away with his crimes for about 12 years, and he's got this delusion that he's going to be a star once he has his final piece, once he has his final victim, which is Clara. And he presents her with this scrapbook that is filled with the pictures and documentation and frantic writings of all Leonard's previous victims.
Wow.
And what he says is that, and you need to put the finishing touches on this scrapbook. What we see for the next 94 minutes, I think the movie is Leonard verbally, emotionally, psychologically, and sexually abusing this poor woman, Clara, as he tries to just break down her will completely and basically finish his masterpiece. Clara eventually, I'm going on instinct because I didn't even do notes on this because it just would ruin the effect watching this movie. Clara eventually realizes that if she stands any chance at survival, she needs to take what she's learned about Leonard and the lessons from and use the scrapbook against him.
And so you see her trying to use the scrapbook in what she learned against him.
Right, as a power play and get this. But you're forced to watch this whole manipulative thing. The film is mostly, as I said, two people, and they're played by Clara's played by Emily Hack, and Leonard's played by the late Tommy Biondo, who sadly he was filming, I think, his feature-length directorial debut after this film, and there was a freak accident on set, and he fell or something and died.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so he never got to do it, and it's a shame because he has this part where you see oh my gosh, how talented this guy is. Emily Hack creates what I think is one of the most amazing performances of any actress I've seen, because in order for this thing to work, you need to watch her just put into this horrifying situation under,
just a brutal to watch. In other words, you're saying
horrible thing, or this horrible abuse. Deal with it, and then basically be broken down, and then try to find this strength within her when it seemed like everything should be lost, which he does so spectacularly that you forget you're watching a movie. Tommy Biondo, it would be really simple for him to play the stereotypical killer, but even though he's a guy with bad teeth and stuff, he's really you can see this guy passing in mainstream society.
Sure. Without
having any idea what kind of person he's like. And the effects are just terrifying. Eric Stanze shoots this in grainy, bad stock VHS. It's very raw, very few cuts, and it's a very difficult movie to watch because you have to watch this horrifying abuse. But it is just, and it's a devastating film, but it is a beautiful, wonderful film. But when I first saw this, when I first saw this, I said when I first saw this, I bought the VHS from Sub Rosa when it came out after a really good review in Rue Morgue magazine. And I remember I was actually working at the Suncoast Pictures for Christmas at the time, a holiday job at Suncoast Pictures. And all the next day, walking through while people were asking me, "Do you have Rush Hour 2? Where are the Dragon Ball Z?" I would just sit there what? Huh? Oh, I'm sorry, the life is dark. I mean, I was in daze the entire next couple days after this, and it's still like that. I mean, even though I was finally revisiting it after more than 10 years now, and even when I saw it now, even knowing what to expect afterwards, I was able to deal. But I said, "Okay, I'm gonna be up now. Do I want to watch another scary movie?" No, you know what I had to watch immediately afterwards? I fired up Netflix and put in an Easter Bunny puppy. It was so dark. It was so devastating to the soul. I needed it filled with something sweet and like nonchalantly, like threw in David Dakota's Easter Bunny puppy. Show me puppies with plastic bunny ears, because that's what I need right now to be able to get to sleep tonight. You know, Scrapbook is really a very hard movie to watch, and it's hard to recommend even. But Stanzi did just an amazing job creating something that so many directors have tried to put on screen and failed. Tommy Biondo and Emily Hack. Emily Hack, I mean, I'm serious. She should have gotten hazard pay for that movie. I'm like, I look at this movie, you see everything she has to go through, how all the humiliation and create the emotional profile. You're like, screw you, Reese Witherspoon. This is acting. I mean,
she's fearless. She's an absolutely fearless actress, and Eric's really lucky to have found her, because she's been in a bunch of his films, and she goes there so well and is so convincing. She's really good in Ratline. She's also really good in Andrew. Help me here. Was it I Spit
on Your Corpse, Piss on Your Grave?
That was captives on a very quick schedule. I think she shot all of her things like in a day or two on that movie.
Yeah, I saw that
actual penetration in one scene too with a bottle.
There was one with the broom handle.
Broom handle in that one.
Or whatever. Well, yeah.
Scrapbook, there's a bottle. I don't know if it's actually for real.
Yeah, the things that she has to go through in Scrapbook, that of all the perverse sexual stuff and the gross kind of violent stuff, the thing that always gets me, and I've seen the movie probably 3 times now. Don't ask me why I've watched it 3 times, but the one scene that gets me is when Eric Biondo puts her in this barrel outside and force feeds her milk, like nearly drowns her in this milk. It's so uncomfortably disturbing and excessive, and at that point, it's that point in the movie where I question, why am I watching this?
Yeah.
But it's not done in the same way of of a director. And there's been good films that have done this where they say, look what we can do, and look how shocking this is. There have been good movies that did that, but it wasn't done for that purpose. It was done to say, I think the tagline for this movie when it first came out was, true horror is simply what one person can do to another.
Right.
And that's what this film's about. It's, we see these movies, we love these movies. Eric Stanley still loves these movies. He directed Ice of the Sun before this, and he's directed a few films after it. But he says, but this is actually what true horror is.
Sure.
Horror is these things where you don't get the actual emotional story behind what you hear as statistics on the news. And that's what this movie was. It's an absolutely devastating motion picture. If you can stomach it, I recommend it. But it's a rough ride.
Yeah.
But it is so brilliantly done. So brilliant.
It sounds like it might loosely be based on Leonard Lake and his horribly perverse and disgusting shenanigans. I mean, he did something similar, although none of the ladies were fortunate enough to get away. That sounds like it. Sounds like the director had an eye towards Leonard Lake, arguably America's most disgusting serial killer.
It's possible. I know that he researched actual serial killing cases and he based certain things off it. And also, the killer's name is Leonard.
Yeah. So that could very. Anyone else want to weigh in on Scrapbook?
I just want to say that that's another one where I wasn't working a media job at the time. I had Gonzorific was just a blog for Micro Cinema Reviews. And I was on Ron's screener list, so I had gotten Ice from the Sun, so I'd get, Scrapbook. And I was like, oh, God. Because I was used to seeing a lot of Micro, and Micro was usually, it was like the erotic this or that. Or, the newest, Chris Seaver or something like that. I mean, no one was making, Andy Kopp was pretty much the only other person that was making, really destroy you kind of movies. And, Ice from the Sun is, in hindsight, I'm like, of course, right? But Stanzi was working on a level, a lot of them that were doing just gore, you know,
Yeah.
or violence. But this stuff is actual, like, you know, like we were talking about Irreversible, you know, Gaspar Noé and Enter the Void. You know, those are people that are working on an indie, like, higher budget level. But Stanzi, that is the caliber of artist in the micro world. That's who we had, and I just remember going like that barrel. I mean, it's not just the milk, but like later when it's like maggots. You know what I mean? You're just
Yeah.
going like,
So
and I had
repulsive.
and there was no like, even if he'd include, if Ron had put in there like, hey, really freaky stuff or whatever, I just feel like, yeah, whatever, you know, like I got all the brain damage. This is the most hardcore stuff you'll ever see.
Yeah, brain.
At that time, it was not done, and I still think it's. I mean, later with August Underground and all that, it was happening, but this early on, no, you had like.
Yeah. It was the shot on video, guys, and I remember when Scrapbook came out with that big box, man. That was it was something that didn't really get passed around that much, and it kind of fell off into obscurity until it finally got re-released. And speaking of that intro that Scott had talked about, it's very similar to Tim Ritter's Creep. If you've ever seen that, they do almost the same intro for both films, and it's effective in both.
I'm used to Tim Ritter kind of being more tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, Creep is not tongue-in-cheek at all.
Really?
I love Creep, man. Creep is fantastic.
I'm just familiar with like the Truth or Dare stuff, you know.
No, I just think these ones are disturbing because you're not expecting them to be as effective as they are because it's so low budget. I know I had just seen so much cheap stuff at that time. You're not ready for it, and the thing about it is knowing that it was made, like, you don't know who made it necessarily, and you don't know, is this person you didn't know if Emily Hack was really getting hurt. That was part of the disturbing. That was one of the most disturbing things about it. She's such a good actor. You're like, that has to suck. I mean, is there a safety word? Are these people crazy?
One of the most reassuring things, and I kind of. When I wrote an article recently for Movieocracy.com, plug, was I did it's subtle, huh? I wrote an article where I mentioned, look at the behind the scenes on a lot of your favorite horror films. You'll see that it's not real. And one of the most reassuring behind the scenes was looking at the behind the scenes on Scrapbook, how they were all joking around and everything on the set, and they actually explained we had to. Because what we were dealing, what with these poor actors, like especially Emily had to go through, what Eric had to tell Emily to go through, even though he's by all accounts a really nice guy.
Great writer too.
Yes, very much so.
And is like they had to keep the mood light to keep in perspective that this is you're going to access a spot, it's very vulnerable, but it's acting, it's not real, because they had to do it as a coping mechanism to keep the mood light. It was one of the most reassuring behind the scenes, because like Andrew says, there are certain films we found, I think especially when we were younger and finding these horror films, where sometimes we would find a movie and we would say, like, I'm not entirely sure that the people who made this aren't sociopaths.
Yeah.
There was weird, like, Japanese movies I remember renting, and at one point there's two women are in a cage and just thrown off the side of a building, and you're going like, are they all right?
Yeah. I think early Japanese cinema from like in the 90s and the early 2000s really went off the deep end the way they went off the deep end in the 70s with the Pinky films. And there's one series, if I could bring up one more film that I thought it's still, I've only ever seen it once and I don't think I ever need to see it again, is a series of films called All Night Long.
Oh,
and
man.
I've heard
part
those
three.
Yeah.
Part 3 deals with this guy that lives in this apartment complex, and he's obsessed with his neighbor, and basically takes her garbage and makes a museum of like her used tampons and all this all over his walls, and it is a thoroughly disgusting film, but it's also highly disturbing. It just
And there's just something about at certain times, certain places, there was some energy going on where people just went for it. And that era of Japanese cinema, there's some really out there stuff.
Well, it's like that's flat out the reason why people were so freaked out about Texas Chainsaws, because they were just like, some maniacs got a camera and filmed this.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You know.
In the documentary, The American Horror, The American Nightmare, not the John Keyes film, but the Adam Simon documentary.
The IFC one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. They were commenting on one of Kate's picks, Last House on the Left, and somebody I can't remember who said it, says, like, you know, you were used to seeing films that were made in studios and were beautifully put together and stuff. But like in this film, you looked at it, it was so rough, it was so raw that you thought, you always had the feeling with the studio films that at least the people have your best interests at heart. Looking at the rougher indie films, you didn't know if this person had your best interest at heart. You might be in the hands of a maniac.
Well, they were making what they were making what they found scary. They did not find like Psycho scary. They did not find Rosemary. You know, I introduced The Exorcist tonight and a screening of it, and I decided to go with talking about the difference between the old horror and the new that was being made. And they were just like, we're going to rip your ass, man. We're going to go real. Those things are safe. It's safe to see the guy in the devil suit. It's safe to see the explanation of Norman Bates. It's all safe. It's like, well, we want to throw you somewhere where you don't know what's going on, and we're never going to tell you either.
No, they
don't.
Just,
like, deal with it.
They don't explain it in Texas Chainsaw. It's just this batshit crazy family in the middle of the farmland, and it makes you worry about taking those Sunday morning drives out into the country.
If I ever see a dirt road, I say, don't go on down that one. I still do that.
Every dirt road?
If I don't see pavement and McDonald's on the side of the road, I don't even want to hear about it.
And excellent choices, everyone. I know it's getting late. If you guys don't mind, I just wanted to weigh in with mine.
No, yeah.
Real quick. And
No.
No, it's my show. I know, and I'm asking you guys. That's who I am. But I just want to state everybody here brought some great stuff to the table. First off, I mean, it shows you the diverse things, even when we talk about horror, how different horror films can be disturbing in different ways. You know, the newer stuff now, you've got, your Hostels and Saws, they are still fairly glossy. I mean, they're kind of initially, like, shock you, like, oh, they did that, but after a minute, it doesn't resonate with you, I think, like these films that you guys talked about. And for me, where I was going with this is the film that's resonated with me to this day has made me hate that I have a dick, is the film called I Spit on Your Grave, the original.
I knew it!
The original 1978, and I know that's probably a little cliche, but for me, when I watched this is one of the only films that made me hate my gender so completely. And it's one of those that just resonated and stuck with me for so long, and not just because it's the subject of rape, which is disturbing in itself, and I have trouble with, but I like a lot of you, I mean, you watch enough films, you start thinking about what the actors and actresses go through, like you were mentioning with Scrapbook. And in this one, with I Spit on Your Grave, what Camilla Keaton went through for this film is insane. That an actress would do that, just like with Dead Girl, just like with Scrapbook, you know, and that just stuck with me, like, wow, you know, and that's one of those that really disturbed me. I've watched Serbian film, I've watched all these other disturbing films, and many of those stuck with me, but this one just wrenches me so completely that the only time I watched it was someone was curious about it, and I said, "You really want to watch this film?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." We sat down, and at the end of the film, he said, "God, I hate being a guy." Uh, I mean, am I wrong? I mean, this, forget the fact that the box says, banned in 32 countries or whatnot. This film is just disturbing in so many ways. Not just on the physical level, but psychological, but brutal. Did this movie affect any of you guys at all when you watched it?
I think its main power is that the director wasn't making it to make a sleaze film. If you listen to, I don't know what edition
the
of
Millennium
DVDs you guys had watched. I have the Millennium edition, and it has the director's commentary on it. And I found his commentary really very interesting. And
it's on the Blu-ray too.
Yeah, and it basically tells the story about him finding a woman out of, what was he? And correct me, guys, if I'm mistelling this story. Where he was walking home in a park, and this woman came upon him that had been brutally raped, or what was the story? I totally forget what that story was.
I can't remember at this point.
I remember Joe Bob's commentary a lot more vividly.
But so far it sounds like what I've heard.
And it thoroughly devastated him. How this group of people had acted toward this woman, how she was just like on the brink of death, and he wanted to portray that disgust on screen, and he thoroughly accomplished it.
Yeah,
it's a very hard film to watch. I think rape revenge fanatics kind of, they love, because it's very exploitive toward the end when she gets her just desserts and starts killing off these guys one by one. But I've said this before in the past on Astro Radio Z quite a bit, that I'm with Cole on this, that I generally hate rape movies. If there's rape in a film, I'm usually really turned off, and I kind of don't finish a lot of them. It's just stuff that I don't want to think about or experience or watch. I find no enjoyment in it. And this movie is a perfect example of a movie that shows you that it isn't something that you should enjoy.
No.
Even though there are sickos out there that will enjoy it. But it's hard for me to recommend. That's why I didn't chime in on Last House on the Left. I respect it, but it's not a film I enjoy.
Right.
This film is also another one of those where it thoroughly captures and is effective and does what it sets out to do.
It all depends on how it's presented. Like, for instance, because, also Scrapbook dealt with rape and everything. And I Spit on Your Grave does not let up. And just when you think it's over, it starts all over again. And it's very telling that the original title of this film, the one that Miyazaki, if I'm pronouncing his name right, originally wanted for the film, was Day of the Woman.
Right.
Because it was supposed to be a feminist film. But in order to show this, it had to show how unforgiving, how brutal this was. Now, there are rape revenge films that are totally done for the exploitation. Like, for instance, House at the Edge of the Park is probably an example that you could do that. I think Death Wish 2 is an example of it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And, there's also, as I had mentioned when I was speaking about Fred J. Lincoln, there's adult films. I just got something from Vinegar Syndrome recently called, Vixens of Kung Fu. I thought it was going to be fun. It was going to be happy. Starts out with a brutal rape. I'm like, oh, no.
Tricked again.
Because it is a turn-off. It's horrible. It's repellent. It's a disgusting crime that so many women have to deal with. I recently, no, never mind. I'm not going to talk about that. But basically everybody, one of us has known somebody who has been touched by this horrible crime, which is telling in itself. It's how it's presented. Scrapbook, and also I Spit on Your Grave, where if I had to pick a number 2 most disturbing, that would have been it. It's so brutal, it's so unforgiving, but it's
Raw.
not, even though people will find exploitation in it, I'm sure, it's not meant to be taken as such. It's meant to be taken like, look at the hell that women have to go through, and at the end they kind of take back the night. I mean, I personally think that ending image of her holding the hatchet overhead while in the speedboat, I think that is like one of the greatest modern feminist images. I'm like, yes, take control finally of these people who have like harmed you. Yeah. Absolutely, you know, but it is a devastating film. It's a great movie, but it's
brutal. Yeah, I want to get the opinions of Dawn and Kate and Scarlett Ramona there. Just because we don't usually have females in the group that often, except
no offense, this is a good opportunity for this.
No. I want to get their opinions about a film like this. Have you any three of you seen I Spit on Your Grave?
Of course,
absolutely.
Yeah, I have, but I just got my wisdom teeth out, and I was on a lot of medication, so I don't remember it that well.
And Dawn, let's start with you. Your opinion on the film. Would you agree that this one isn't exploitive? It's supposed to be showing the brutality of such a crime, and how did it affect you?
I would. It definitely has the exploitive elements, but it definitely more showcases the brutality. I find it interesting that the term feminism is being tossed around regarding this film a lot, because I don't find rape revenge flicks as being feminist at all. They're rape revenge. They are not feminism. It may be women taking back power to an extent, but I don't. It starts with women being destroyed. Completely destroyed, and I'm sorry, none of that is feminism to me. Feminism is about women empowerment, not about watching them climb back from the bowels of hell.
Okay. Agreed. That's a great point.
Excellent point. Ramona, what about you? You've seen this film. How did it affect you, and how did you take the film?
Every time I think of this film actually got me in trouble.
Oh, really? Did you go around beating a bunch of guys after it, or?
Oh, that's just a normal day.
I think that's too illicit for this conversation.
No jury in America would convict Ramona.
That's true. That's true. No, I'm pretty sure I was working on my master's degree, and I had a friend who went to another school in a different program, and he had a teacher who was doing a study on violence, and he wanted a movie that he felt depicted violence to show to people, like, where they would show clips and like gauge people's reactions. And I was like, so of course he came to me and he's like, do you have any ideas? I'm like, I've got the perfect movie. I took them right to the rape scenes. Like, I didn't even tell them about the movie or anything. So I screened this little clip thing that I made, and like they basically like excommunicated me. They thought I was like, the worst person ever, and how could I show them such filth? And I'm like, this is what you were asking for, and like, isn't this the reaction you want to get? And I'm like, this isn't the whole movie. So like every time I think of this movie, I think of how like it just in seeing just those scenes and how brutal they are, like how it affected people. So like, I mean, they were just snap judgment right away.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I actually like the end of the movie, and I agree. I don't think it's a feminist chant at all. But I mean, if you're able to get back at some people who did shit like that to you, I'm completely on her side with that. I would be 100%.
And again, just because I don't think it's feminist doesn't mean I don't think it's powerful. It is an extremely powerful movie.
Definitely,
sure.
Yeah.
Kate,
I'm not going to argue with you guys not finding them feminist, because I don't feel like I'm qualified to be anymore.
You've broken Scott. Way to go, Don.
Well, no, seriously, any more than I would feel like, if there was like a racial film and like I said, well, I think this is a great powerful thing on racism, and then there's an African American guy who says, I think it's full of shit. Like, okay. I haven't been through what you've been through. I'm an outsider, so. But yeah, I do find it powerful and everything. I think that it has a thing. In real life, as I mentioned in that article, in real life I don't believe in violence to solve violent ends. I believe that violence begets violence. But in this fictitious, in the artistic realm of cinema, I felt that it was making a statement.
Right. Oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kate, did you have anything to add? Even though you watched it when you were all drugged up, did it have any effect on you at all, or did you take anything away from it?
Well, I don't remember a lot of it. I was I was out of it, but I do agree that it's not really feminist, but it is. You can get back. At some point, go for it.
Sure.
Go all out, and I think that is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Glenn, did you have anything to add about the I Spit on Your Grave?
No, I do not. I don't revisit that one.
Yeah, it's like
a tough
one. It is, out of all the ones that I've watched, and I've watched a lot of disturbing films, it is the one for me that's the one for me. That's the one where I don't watch it often. It's only where I absolutely make sure if someone wants to watch it, because they never had, I go, are you sure? And I'll watch it with them and kind of not physically hold their hand, but be there, and then afterwards, immediately after, we'll start talking about it, and it helps them. But for me, when I watched it, it made me hate being a guy. It literally, it did. It made me hate my gender so much that for a little while I just had to walk away, because I was just like, fuck. It destroyed me. It really did. And what I also find interesting about it is not only what she had to go through and what the actors had to do, but this was about the only movie any of these people ever made.
Yeah.
Both of them. Camille Keaton's doing some more stuff now.
Well, she is doing now, but
really nice.
But after this came out, if you look at the cast list, because I did after I watched it a second time with someone, I went through the cast list. No one did anything after this film. It was like this film stopped whatever career they might have had. It just shot it. And then I saw that they were going to do the remake, and they did the remake, and it was nowhere. And
it was different. It was mostly based on the revenge.
And I thought part 2, the sequel to the remake, was actually decent.
Yeah, I've actually heard that's phenomenal.
It's actually pretty good.
I've heard the second one is supposed to be a lot better and more true to what the spirit, for lack of a better term, that the first one was. But I haven't seen the sequel yet, but I've heard different things about it. But for me, even when they did do the remake, I'm like, this is one of those films, like many of the films we've watched and brought up tonight, and where I'm going with this is, these are films that you can't, I don't think you can make in modern day, and really anymore. I mean, the Last House on Your Left, I Spit on Your Grave, you guys mentioned, Scrapbook. I mean, in indie films, you can still see it, but anything at all that gets the attention like these did before, I don't think you can make that type of film. Like, I couldn't believe they did the remake for I Spit on Your Grave. I'm like, how the hell are you going to market that to the modern audience, and how are you going to make a film that's going to have the impact of the original? And you can't. You can't.
The remake was actually worse because it kind of sexualized the rape scenes in its cinematography and the way that those were edited. I thought it was kind of gross. They're just, it made the original look way more responsible, and that's a very disturbing in itself.
Yeah. Well, what got me with the remake too was the fact that the guys in the original, the guys got scared of her. In the remake, the guys were more scared of the cop guy, their cop buddy, than they were of her coming after him, and that completely defeats the point of them feeling whatever emotions, for what they did. And
well, yeah, because to me, the most disturbing thing about the most disturbing scene in the original I Spit on Your Grave, and I'm sure I'm going to get lots of disagreement for this, it isn't even one of the violent scenes. It's after all the rape has happened and before any of the revenge has happened. It's when you see what are the consequences for these people. It's nothing. They go back to their families, to their homes, to their jobs, to being people in the small town who are respected, and nothing happens. They go back as if nothing has occurred. That, to me, was the most disturbing element of that film, was that after these people had committed such inhuman acts, that could happen. And you think to yourself, I mean, that's what happens every day. I mean, how many rapes are reported every day? Forget about how many actually happen.
Yep.
Are all of them just like monsters hiding under the bridge? They're not. They're people who are capable of doing these horrible things and then going as if nothing has happened. That is the most disturbing and terrifying element of this film and really rape culture in general.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Matthew was the most disturbing thing in I Spit on Your Grave because he's mentally handicapped, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And the scenes with him, like, they're trying to get him to do it. I mean, it's just like, you know, and then they give him the knife and say he's supposed to kill her. I mean, that to me is, you know, it's like when I watch it, I fast forward through the rape scenes because obviously they're just so effective and make you feel horrible, but I do like it as a movie. But I would say if one was looking for what would be like a modern-day movie that could be watched and viewed and that was made responsibly is this Skin I Live In by Pedro Almodovar.
Oh, yes.
It's like a deconstruction of the rape revenge film and was really, really smart the way they did it because you don't realize that's what you're watching for a while. Yeah. And there was one made in the early 2000s called Defenseless that also took like a supernatural kind of angle with it. So they have some modern movies have realized that the rape angle was exploitation.
Right.
You know, be it the Savage Streets or Miss 45, things like that. You know, there's a long laundry list of ones that do it, but the movies of today don't look for like the I Spit on Your Grave remake of the Last House remake. If you watch the Almodovar movie, if you can find Defenseless, I recommend watching that one too. But if you have trouble watching movies where stuff like that happens, I would say Skin I Live In would be a neat one to kind of to watch because it is disturbing. And I was kind of shocked that some of the people didn't get up and leave when it was because it was an art house audience. You never know how. You know, sensitive they're going to be.
And that's got Antonio Banderas in it, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really it's his. I mean, Almodovar basically made a horror movie. You know? Nobody was expecting it. Nobody really knows that that's what it is. But it falls in the rape revenge genre and responsibly made. I felt.
Well, thank you all for sitting in and having us talk about all these uncomfortable films. I really think some of the true horror films out there should make you feel uncomfortable, should test the boundaries. They're showing the Manson family. I always felt that, you know, there's horror films that are entertaining, horror films that are meant to have an impact, and tonight I think we brought up a lot of films that are meant to have an impact, and they aren't just made like your Hostels or Saws to be torture porn to see, oh, look how we kill this person, a Serbian film. Yes. There's other ones out there. We could go on probably another hour on even more of them as Derek shows more films. But I thank you all for this journey, and why don't we go real quick? We'll wrap it up here. Okay, thanks. Human Centipede, yes. Well, I don't know about Human Centipede. Yeah, Human Centipede 2. Yeah.
Not a real centipede.
I didn't like Serbian film or Human Centipede. So
they're basically comedies, dudes. Human Centipede, it takes 45 minutes for them to sew them together. What you realize in Human Centipede is a mad scientist movie because that dude that plays the Dietrich Laser or whatever. That dude's crazy, and that movie is about his performance. That's what that movie is.
But the second film is just so damn grimy. Oh my god! You want to bathe if you watch it.
You
it's
do.
so dirty. The
The only
humans.
color in part 2 is brown for poop. It's so
Yeah.
great. I'm sorry. That was brilliant.
All right, yeah, Cannibal Holocaust as well, Derek. You're just gonna keep pulling on him from his library. We're gonna wrap it up here, though. It is late. But that Derek's proving right there that there's a whole lot more. Yeah, Dark Crystal. Glenn, wrong podcast. We did that already. We did that. Look at Derek scramble now. He's going through his library now. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it and made a list of these films, because all of these are impactful in different ways. Oh, Jesus. And let's go real quick. Thank
Little
you.
something for the no budget nightmares.
Yeah. You guys. Cole, why don't we start with you, and we'll just go down the list. Cole, tell people where they can find your stuff.
Shadows and Lovers Productions, Facebook, Horror Roar Facebook, or just Cole Meredith Facebook. I'm where the sites don't get any attention. Facebook don't communicate apparently.
And Dawn?
In the audience.net, or I don't know, what is my Twitter thing, at Mojo Dawn? Something like that.
I don't know. What's my website?
I know the website, I just don't know the Twitter thing.
Yeah, at Mojo Dawn it is. So.
There you go.
Dawn,
See?
where can I pick up that amazing Mark the Movie Man T-shirt that you have? We need to start.
I need to talk to his manager about that one.
Why are we talking about this Mark the Movie Man fan club shirt? Yeah,
that's a necessity. That is
you're making me real embarrassed here right now.
It's a great shirt. I've wanted one ever since I saw it.
That's
I haven't even seen it, and I want one.
Derek, where can they find you?
What's it?
Where can they find your stuff, please?
Okay. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter. You can find my podcast, Astro Radio Z, at astroradioz.com. iTunes, Stitcher Smart Radio, Spreaker, blah, blah, blah. Film Jerks is on there as well. What I would love you to do is go to Vimeo On Demand and rent my brand new movie, Hole in the Wall. Please, me and a bunch of my best friends made a really fucked up movie, and we'd love for you to watch it this month of October.
Yes.
For $5 measly, please plunk it down Vimeo On Demand or go to indierain.com. The movie's up there. Otherwise, we have a website where you can buy the limited edition 50 tape only VHS. Please. Once it's gone, it's gone. You need sick movies. You obviously listen to 4 hours of us ramble on. Why not pick up a VHS of another great, sick, disgusting movie that'll make you question your life?
Yes.
Do it. Thank you.
It's a good movie. Watch it, guys.
Really good.
And Glenn, what about you, sir?
You can find me, Naked Hobo Productions. You can find me on Facebook and on YouTube with the B-Movie Bunker.
Awesome. And Gonzorific, Mr. Andrew Shearer, where they can find your stuff.
Oh, if you don't have enough money to rent Derek's movie, you can rent a couple of mine. You can actually get 2 of them for how much it costs to rent Derek's. But you should see Derek's movie first. But after you've seen his movie, what's left of you should go to Amazon Instant Video. You can get Mondo Gonzo, Fake Blood, or Pajama Nightmare.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Kate, how about you? Where can they find you?
My blog, it's onlyamovieblog.com, and Cinemaphile Podcast, where Andrew Shearer and I do a monthly cult core series.
We have an entire episode about Last House on the Left.
And it's amazing.
Ramona, how about you?
I basically can't be found. Just an enigma that shows up in various podcasts and then disappears.
Okay. She's on Film Jerks, ladies and gentlemen. You can find her on Film Jerks talking about other films as well, and she's been on our other previous podcasts. definitely a welcome addition. Definitely can tell she's a big horror movie fan, so, and just a movie fan in general. And Mr. Scott Davis, you, sir.
Well, I'm on Facebook and Twitter, of course, and I've made it really easy for everybody else. Movieocrity.com. I've just revamped the website. I'm writing again. Anything that I was going to put on Film Geek Central is getting put on there. All the upcoming Movieocrity episodes, all the upcoming Cinema Obsessions, all the podcasts that I'm on, including this one. Movieocrity.com. You can see it all.
Excellent. And I just wanted to do a honorable mention. We did have William Holt. He couldn't make it tonight, but he did have 3 films that we could definitely talk extensively about. But I just want to mention them. Give a shout out to him. He mentioned Slaughter, Vomit Dolls, Seed, and Human Centipede, as Derek brought it up, as his disturbing films, which are also excellently disturbing movies. And Pink Flamingos. Thank you, Derek. Yes, Pink Flamingos.
It's that smile next to Derek's Pink Flamingos that really.
Yeah, it's his smile. It's his definitely.
He's got that he's got that showbiz smile that's like, buy a car from me.
Yes.
You obviously know what it's like to be at my table at Cinema Wasteland, then.
And then we have Erotic Couch. Wow, this is.
The Erotic Couch. Now that's a motion picture everyone should buy at gonzorific.com. Where can they like that fabulous motion picture up, Mr. Andrew Shearer?
And if you like erotic couches, you might like the Erotic Castle. I made that too.
And after you find all these interesting people's stuff, you can go to Special Mark Productions, where you can find links to all my stuff there. That's the easiest way. Also on Facebook, the Final Cut and the Spoiler Room have their own groups, and you can find me at Movie Maniac 3D on Twitter. Any one of those sources, you can find all my other stuff. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Everyone, thank you for listening. Hope you got something out of it. And remember, the Spoiler Room, where the conversation's fresh, even though we do spoil the movies.